Welcome everyone, welcome to the channel. And so this right here is the kind of a surprise for me, but this is a huge balance patch. Yep, exactly, Neutral. It's a huge balance patch. It's covering basically what I call it, like all of like the B squad units, right? These are all the underrated units that people have been complaining about, maybe minus like FCC. So there's a huge list of units here. We've got, as you can know, we've got Ruele, SBA, LRK, Pavel, Lilibet, Kayron, and then we've got a few Covenant units. Melissa says Elena, Mort, Yulha, Lidica gets a buff, Auxilary Lots gets a rework to PvP, Furious gets more damage, Veronica gets some buff, and Armin gets a buff. So huge balance patch. All these units are units that people have complained about, which is really good, I think, and I think it's really cool. They're offering a few recalls as well. We'll talk about that. We've got a few artifact changes, and then they're going to change the way the extra turn is. Basically, it's just an RNL nerf, but I'll talk about that. So first off, we've got Ruele of Light, which is a unit I've pulled 2 of, so I'm excited for this. She's basically like the primo anti-cleave unit now. So obviously they've just changed her S1 to spread out the healing. That's fine. I honestly kind of prefer the lowest health healing, but this is whatever. And then they've given her a damage limit. So damage limit on S2. Which means that, you know, she's going to help prevent those units from getting one shot, but minus a strip. And then this is ally, so I believe she can actually target herself too, which is pretty neat. And then on her S3, S3 stays the same. It still does the full res plus invincibility, but Ruele revives herself now. So this is really good. Obviously hard countered by Bryceria, but this means that, like, no matter what, if you're killing, let's say you bring like Candy and Ruele, and they kill you in a cleave situation, well, now Ruele brings herself back, she brings Candy back, and now Candy can just wipe their cleave team. So really good unit. I'm glad as cleave's getting really powerful, so another unit that stops that is nice. So really like that. Silverblade Aramintha is now basically just like the best in slot Harsetti bridge. So what that means is she gets this change on her S2, which I think is nice for people not using Harsetti, but it's definitely for Harsetti, because you can see at the start of the first battle you get attack proportional to effectiveness, which is nice, so more burn damage, right? But not only that, you get when an ally except the caster ends their turn, increases combat readiness of the caster by 15%. Well, guess what? If your Aramintha low rolls on a Harsetti reset, she's going to be, what, 85 combat readiness, which means this pushes her to 100% every time, and it's after they end their turn. So basically this is the Harsetti bridge now, which is nice, but obviously still picking the 2 of them in RTA is going to be tough, but for Arena, really nice. And so now she does more consistent, so just the 2 burn effects for 2 turns, and then that's 100% chance, and then also she still has her stun, and then she still has the decreased CR. But not only attack proportional to effectiveness is really nice, because it means that you can build, because everyone builds her, like, I'll show you my SBA. My SBA is 210 effectiveness maybe, and so what that means is that, where is she? Yeah, 216. She's on like crap gear too, but she's 3k attack with 216, and so what that means is that 3k attack could go up to 4 or 5k, and then she's going to be doing a ton of damage with her burns. So that's really nice. But then we talked about burns. She detonates on S1 now, so that's really good. So she's basically going to be, you know, bringing constant stacking damage, which is really nice. And it's also nice because, you know, you're dealing with units that have a lot of fixed damage resistance right now, so this is nice. Or not fixed damage resistance, but, you know, the best way to combat them is fixed damage. So I like this upgrade. Obviously it's a Harsetti bridge at the end of the day, but this is still a really good bridge in general, because it means you just put her in a comp and she's going to take one of your second turns or third turns. Next up, we've got LRK. Basically, all they did is they made his barrier last a little longer, so that's nice. But the big thing is they made it so when you use S3, he resets skill cooldowns of all allies by 1 turn. And so this is important because this means that he's basically a knock-wall counter now. Because originally knock-wall would still let his S3 go, because when he gets hit, right, he decreases his skill cooldown, like right there. And so now he gets to S3, and once he S3s, he's going to reset everyone else's cooldown. So he's not just a glorified knock-wall counter, he is a knock-wall counter now. So it's really nice. Next up, we've got Pavel. What they did with Pavel is they basically, so instead of this like weird skill cooldown thing that we never really cared about because he gasses out after turn 1 anyways, we now get increased damage dealt, which means he's going to kill more people because you get that soul burn. You're bringing souls, it's aggro, right? So that's nice. He gets more damage. Still think that, you know, he doesn't do too much else, but that's fine because his S2 hits like a truck, and then his S3 now gets to basically guaranteed kill some things, depending on how much this actually increases by. If it's like top model Lilibet, that's a pretty big increase though. Designer Lilibet, basically this is a really good upgrade. So obviously we're getting from silence to decreased defense on S1, which is huge. That's just, I mean, decreased defense is like one of the best debuffs, if not the best. And so that's really nice. And then Soul Burn, obviously 2-turn defense break. It's just like Carcetti, but just as broken. And then after that, we've got, she still has her same operation, but now she gets herself immunity for 1 turn. So that means that after you've procced this, you can't just debuff her again. So if you're bridging aggro comps, she's going to not only cut the aggro comps, but she's going to give herself resistance to those like units that don't strip but apply debuffs. So, you know, that's nice. And then on her S3, so it stays the same, except now it's penetrating defense by 50%. So, you know, you build her like a DPS, and now she's going to do even more damage. So that's, she's definitely putting her in a good position. Now, a lot of people have talked about, and I stand by this, I think the best upgrade for her would be to reset the skill cooldown of S3 on full focus, full fighting spirit, just like Landy. But now that I think they've upgraded this, I think that would make her too broken. So I think this is fine, and I'm happy with this, but I don't really have her, so it doesn't change my life much. Twisted Eidolon Kayron, so they just made his counterattack do more damage, which is good because that's what you're getting most of his damage from. And then this is huge. They upped his fixed damage to a maximum of 10,000 to 15,000, but they upped the base from 2 to 5. So now, especially if you're on like auto battle Kayron, right, on like arena defense or some troll, he's going to be doing more fixed damage, and that's just going to kill. That's increasing your kill range. You know, you're going to kill even like mid HP Sylvan Sages, and then if you've countered and at least done some chip damage on a candy, you'll kill candies. You'll kill any evasion units that you're worried about. Just tons of damage. So that's really nice. Obviously, still a big stat wanting unit, and he's not without his counters. But I think this is a welcome change for him. That just makes him perform better at his job without changing it. Next up, we got some small ones. So we got Melissa. This literally is whatever, just more damage. I mean, this is what Melissa's 6th buff, 6th or 7th, like crazy. So yeah, more damage dealt is always nice, but you're just removing the condition on that. And then they're changing her EE to reflect that, which is nice. I mean, you just get more attack buff, which is good. So basically they made Says a bridge, and so this means, oh, love Die Hard. Basically, so he still has his damage reduction, which like I totally forgot about this too until because that was his last buff, right? But now if an ally leaves the target at less than 30% HP, Says is going to activate Encroach, which is an area attack, but it also pushes his CR by 30%. So he's a bridge now. So that's really nice. Obviously, this is kind of like a closer Charles, right? But hitting that 30% threshold on these like takedown teams can be rough, but otherwise still really solid. And then lost health, yeah, they're just changing the way that his other stuff works. Gretchen, stop trying to make Melissa viable. It's not gonna happen. Like someone at Smilegate, Melissa's their favorite unit, and they've climbed that corporate ladder, and so they can keep pushing those buffs, I swear. Next up we have Elena. This one's huge. As an Elena picker into anti-cleave all the time, I'm super happy for this. Basically they moved her extra dispel from S3 to S2. And so what that means is that Ran applies Stigma, right? And if he soul burns, he's applying Stigma to everyone, which halves the combat readiness push-up. But now this dispels the Stigma. And so what that means is that Elena is going to be able to do her job into Ran more. So that's exactly what she's built to do, and that's great that she's going to do that now. So really love that. This is the big one that a lot of people are talking about. And this is, if you haven't finished your decked out selectors, which you haven't because there's a few weeks left, maybe think about taking Mort with one of them, because this guy is really good now. So they removed all of his injury from his kit. He's got no more injury. But in exchange, he now ignores ER on some of his skills if he has more HP than the opponents he's attacking. So you can see that on S1, you get that 50% decreased defense. That is 100%, or ignore ER if higher HP. And then not only that, he gets this insane passive. which says immune to debuffs with prevent movement, which are stun and sleep, I think. I don't think there's anything more. And then there's all heroes except for the caster cannot counterattack. So that means that no one else is countering except for Mort, which is huge for units like Bellion, AU Fiend, Candy that are relying on those counterattacks. Like, this means you can literally pick Mort as a cleave, and he's going to work like Aramintha or Elena, except it's not conditional. And then not only that, like, you know, it's just, he just provides some bulk on your cleave theme. I don't know, I think it's really cool. But, you know, this is huge. It's a big deal. So then he still has his Elbrus thing, and then he still has his Sacred Blessing proc. So that's all the same, except now it gives skill null. Which is huge. Crit resistance I thought was actually really nice, but the skill null is obviously going to be better because it's going to completely mitigate damage to 0, right? Next up, we've got Fear, which is a unique debuff that is unique to him. And this one is cannot add for a certain number of turns, but at the start of the turn it has a 40% chance to be dispelled. So I'm guessing this is going to be a couple turns. It's Fear for 2 turns, and so it's basically a stun that can just randomly disappear. So it has a chance to do nothing, or it has a chance to like really inhibit your opponent for 2 turns, right? So that's really neat. Not only that, but you can save his skill now too, because it's recovering health of the caster. So obviously, you know, if he's got a little damage, you can pull immediately, or you could save, which he had that for his original one. And then he now has a freaking strays built into his S3, which is penetrating defense of the enemy with the highest max health by 70%, which is crazy. And then he ignores ER of any targets with max health lower than the caster's max health again. And so basically he's going to guaranteed get this like stun sleep thing on the enemies. No strip, which is important, but you know, you can fix that with other units. And then he's going to be doing just tons of damage to that high HP unit. So crazy upgrades to Mort. I'm excited. I'm going to be taking him with one of my deck selectors now, and hopefully trying him out, because this should be really fun. And then they're changing this to the speed buff on S1, or on the Sacred Blessing. Yulha now becomes an even better anti-cleave option, which is great because I already have her molded a little bit and built. Or not built, but I had her enhanced. I took her gear off for someone else, but anyways, she now, instead of being the single target reflector, reflects all damage, 40% from any AoE or single target, which is huge, because this is gonna, you know, like you've got your big AoE damage dealers in cleave comps like ML Lud. Yeah, obviously you're not worried about like Rands or anything because they're blue, but you know, ML Lud's the big one. But this is just gonna one-shot him whenever she's been S3. And then not only that, she still has her S2, it still works the same way, but now on her S3, she gets to Soul Burn for increased damage dealt, because like her extra turn didn't really do anything, because like her S1 didn't do much. Maybe if you had like a 3F or something, but now she increases damage dealt, so it's going to increase her kill range and allow her to kill more things. Really awesome. This is great. No, Dominial isn't going to be the only girl that you can reflect. No, she is now, we've got Yulha here. The Primo reflecting unit, so this is going to be really nice into those cleave comps. So I'm glad that they're providing more anti-cleave options, especially because they provided more cleave options or upgraded them. So I think it's a very balanced patch from that perspective. Lidica got exactly the buff she needed, so now she basically comes with a base 50% def pen instead of base 0%, and so that means that you do not need to have that insane speed difference or a ton of debuffs. Yeah, we talked about Mort. Very excited about him. Gonna be picking him with my decked out selector. But so this penetrates defense by 50% base, which goes up to 100. So this means that she's gonna really easily hit her max pen, which allows her to do her job better. Obviously, she still gasses out insanely after she does her S3, but now she's actually gonna kill when you S3, so that's nice. It's finally time to build your blooming. Yeah, blooming Lidica's legit. I've got mine built. But you know, she's not without her I don't really use her that often because it's hard to proc her skills. So yeah, very excited about that. Next up, we've got Auxilary Lots. So they finally pulled the trigger, even after people complained last time. They made him no longer good for PvE. She's also dog shit. Who Blooming Lidica? She's fine. She's good. She works when she works. She's just hard to pick an RTA. But now, yeah, okay. So he's got four turn cooldown on S2, but they gave him Death Break on S3. So he's basically a, not a no contact, but like a contact version of Flan, where he does the Death Break on the enemy, and then he pushes up one of your cleave unit by 100% CR. So, you know, this could be Judge Kisei after they buff Judge Kisei. And now you've got Oxalot's Judge Kisei is back, and all of a sudden we're in 2019 again, you know? So that's really neat, but they are providing a recall. So if you have an extra copy of Oxalot's, make sure to save it and put it in your hero inventory, because you can use this to get, I'm going to use it to get Wopsid. I think I've got an extra Oxalot's I can exchange for a Wopsid. So yeah, so recall, keep that in mind, but he's going to be solid for PvP. You know, Oxalot's resurgence after 5 years, you know, but yeah, so excited about that. Next up, we have one, I gotta test this one, really, or watch people test this one to see, but Peacemaker Furious is getting increased speed and defense of all allies for 2 turns, which is nice. I think it'd be really cool if they gave him Indomitable buff AoE, but it's okay. And then he gets that extra turn, and then he gets to do his theoretical one-shot, but I don't really know how much damage this is gonna do, and some people are gonna have to run, test out, and see how much damage he's gonna do. But he does double hit as well if he's buffed, which he provides a buff on himself. So that's cool. I mean, I think it's niche, but like neat. But I've never seen anyone use Peacemaker Furious, so we'll see if this changes that, right? Next up, we have Veronica. This one's actually huge. Obviously, immortality is everywhere. It's everywhere, and it's so annoying to fight. And so now Veronica, instead of just getting that little baby push of 20%, gets to cut half the CR bar every time someone's turn ends and an enemy has immortality. So this is now, she's now like really gonna work against those BBKs and against those Amikis and Genuas. So that's really nice. Next up, we've got Armin too. So Armin, if you don't know how to build Armin, you build her with like 3k defense, and then you build her critting DPS. Like that's the way to build her, and it's a really, like, not a lot of people ever built, but I've seen some really fun builds with her. But now you get the same, you get just more damage reduction, which is great, because now Abigail, no. What do you mean Abigail, no? It's fine. What is it? Oh no, an Abigail for Veronica. Yeah, it's tragic. It's tragic, but it's okay. Anyways, we've got Armin. So now she's just more damage reduction, which is great, because anytime you can pick a DPS that mitigates damage is always good, right? So yeah, that's all the units. Next up, Cruel Mischief just gives more attack instead of damage by Inhala Trials. Pure White Trust now has a 50 to 100. It's a whale artifact now. 50 to 100% chance to increase crit damage, but you do get the 10 soul, which is nice because I believe Zahak does use Soul Burn for increased damage on S3, right? Or is it S1, right? The issue is that you're always running the hit chance Guild War artifact on Zahak, so this is kind of useless, but could be used on someone else, maybe like Conk if you want to Soul Burn on that S2, so we'll see. The problem, obviously, Soul can only be acquired once is important, but you know. Next thing is RNL, so they buff it here. They give you 10% attack buff here, and so the rest of it's the same. So, you know, a little more bonus stats, it's always nice. And then Hostess of the Banquet, you know, you just get a little more damage dealt at base, and then the rest is from HP scaling. So she can have a cap maximum of 18% now, but the problem is you're still running Wind Rider under your Gala, but if you're running a slow Gala, this is still nice because it's less conditional, but you're also getting just like a greater cap, which is nice. But RNL, so they've got it here, but then they changed the way that extra turns work. And so that means that if you have, 2 or more extra turns in one turn, that they'll keep going in subsequent turns, like they'll keep going, which makes sense, because like if you have an RNL on a Ran, then the Ran gets to take 3 turns. But now, you just get the 1 extra turn. You can only get 1 extra turn per turn, which means that Ran and Peyra, especially on their RNLs, are just like completely destroyed. And running RNL on them is just bad. So running RNL on a extra turn unit is bad now, which is so great because that was so annoying to deal with. I hated it so much. Obviously, they're aware that this is a nerf to RNL, and so they are allowing for recall of that. But RNL is still a good artifact. You just don't want to use it on extra turn units, which was the best unit to use it on now. So yeah, that's I'm very grateful for this as a cleave hater. So this is nice, and I think that does it. Yeah. So yeah, very nice balance patch. They finally upgraded so many units that needed it. The 2 units I will be building are now going to be, I will be building Ruele for my anti-cleave, and then I will be building Mort along with everyone else. So yeah, time to get another Sigurd Scyther Wind Rider. Yeah, go for it. So yeah, so that's the balance adjustment. Okay, I will see y'all.